So this lecture is intended for people using Macs or Linux machines. And if you're on Windows, just wait for the next lecture. And what we're going to do is simplify our lives by using a Makefile. So if you go to the course resources for this lecture, you'll see a Makefile you can download. Unzip it and put the contents, as I have, here in the project folder and make sure it's called Makefile with a capital M and no extension. And this is what it looks like. It's very straightforward. Lines 1 and 2 define a couple of variables, one for the compiled version of the front app, our web application that we use to access the microservices, and one that's a compiled version of our broker microservice. And as you can see, on line 5, for example, and line 11 and line 19, these are commands that we'll execute. So we'll type make up, and that will start the Docker images. And we have one called upbuild that will stop the Docker images if they're running, then build all of the projects. So we'll be adding to this over time, and then starts Docker Compose. And down brings down Docker Compose. Build broker builds a Linux version of our broker microservice because it's running in a Linux Docker image. Build the front end builds the front end. Starts the front end, and stops the front end. And there's comments for every one of these. So it's pretty straightforward. So with no additional changes, just by putting that Docker image in there, I can do something like this. Let me make sure my Docker Compose is not running. So Docker Compose down. Good. And let's make sure my front end is not running. So make stop. Perfect. It wasn't running. So now if I type make up _ build, this should build a version of our Docker image, our broker service, and it's going to take a while, and we're going to change that in just a minute. And then it should bring Docker up. Let's see if it works. So I press return. It's building it. And then it downloads the necessary things to the Linux Docker image, and then it'll compile it. And as you can see, it's going to take a little while. We're already at 12 seconds. We'll let this finish, and then we'll speed it up. There, it started and it's running, okay? Now that took quite a while. It took like 30 some seconds, or 24.9 I guess it was, but much longer than I want it to take. So what I'm going to do is close my terminal. And if you look at the Makefile, when I run upbuild, it actually builds a broker executable, a Linux executable. And you can see it's right over here. It did that. And then I did that same thing all over again in the Docker file. So let's open up the broker service Docker file inside the broker service folder and change it. And I'll change it by deleting the first 14 lines entirely. So those are gone. And I'll leave the from Alpine latest, and I'll leave the make dir command, and then I'll change this bit. And all I'm going to do is delete all of this and just copy that executable that my Makefile builds right over to my new Linux image, or my Docker image. So now I'll open my terminal and see how much faster this is. So I'll clear the screen and run make up, or make down to make sure it brings it down first. There it is. And make up _ build. And that is much faster. Okay, so we'll be modifying this Makefile as time goes on and as we add more microservices. But for now, this makes our life ever so much simpler. So my Docker images are running, and now if I want to start my front end, make start. And there it goes. It's listening on port 80, and it's actually listening in the background, okay? So to stop everything, make stop, stops the front end, and make down brings down my Docker images, okay? All right, the next lecture is for Windows users, so you can skip that one.